The room went so quiet that the ice in the crystal glasses sounded loud. Leah stood at the edge of the private dining table with a water carafe in her hands, her fingers steady even as the man at the head of the room leaned back and smiled like he owned oxygen. His cufflinks were matte black, his watch was thin enough to look fake, and his voice never rose above a calm, practiced threat. "Say it again," Mercer Hale said. CEO philanthropist. The kind of man who got praised for bold leadership when he did the same thing criminals did in alleys. "Translate it, right now, in front of everyone." Across the table, a woman in a white blazer laughed into her flute of champagne. Two men with identical haircuts smirked, the way men smirked when they thought they'd found a safe target. One of them lifted his phone slightly, not recording, just letting Leah see the lens. Leah's manager had told her the rules when Hale's party arrived. No eye contact, no opinions, no personality. Smile, paw, disappear. Hale's security didn't disappear. Two men in tailored suits stood at the doors like statues with pulse points. Another was behind Leah, close enough that she could smell mint gum and gun oil. "Come on," Hale said softly. "You heard it. You were hovering. You were listening. Don't act like you didn't." The table's other guests waited like jurors. The air had that expensive stillness, white linen, low amber lighting, a wall of glass showing Manhattan glittering outside like it was part of the decor. Leah had made one mistake. She'd paused half a second too long when she set the wine list down. Just long enough for Hale's date to pounce. "She doesn't understand," the woman had said, loud enough to entertain the room. "Look at her. I swear she's pretending to read. I love places like this. They hire anyone if you're quiet enough." Hale hadn't laughed. He'd just watched Leah the way you watched a lock before you decided whether to pick it or break it. Then he'd said one sentence, casual, like an aside. A sentence that wasn't meant for staff. Now he wanted her to prove she hadn't understood it. "Do it," Hale repeated, still smiling. "Or you can go home. Actually—" His gaze flicked to the nearest guard without turning his head. "She can go home later." No one moved. Not even the servers. Even the pianist in the corner had stopped pretending to play. Leah felt the weight of every exit in the room, every camera, every blind spot. Her pulse tried to climb, but she shoved it down the way she'd learned to do years ago, when panic could get you killed faster than a bullet. She set the carafe down with a soft, controlled click. "Mr. Hale," she said, voice low, professional, the slight trace of an accent she'd practiced until it sounded natural, harmless. "I don't want to interrupt your dinner." That made someone laugh again. A short, mean sound. Hale's smile widened by a millimeter. "You're not interrupting. You're entertaining us." Leah looked at the wine list on the table, then at his face. Just enough eye contact to show she wasn't afraid, not enough to be disrespectful. "The sentence you said," she replied, calm as a temperature-controlled vault, "wasn't a joke, and it wasn't casual." The laughter died instantly, like someone had pulled a plug. One of the men with the identical haircut stopped mid-sip. The woman in white blinked hard, suddenly unsure if this was still funny. Even the guard behind Leah shifted his stance, a subtle change that meant his attention had snapped fully onto her. Hale's expression didn't crack, but his eyes sharpened, bright and cold. "You're confident for staff," he said. Leah didn't flinch. "I'm careful," she corrected. Hale tapped one finger on the table, not impatient. "Counting." "Translate it," he said again, word for word. In the silence, Leah's mind moved faster than her face. If she translated it, she admitted she understood it. If she didn't, she looked weak. Either choice gave him what he wanted: control. So she chose a third option. One she'd learned from people who survived rooms like this. She made it about him. "You didn't ask for a translation," Leah said. "You asked for obedience." A soft inhale rippled through the table, the kind people made when they watched someone step too close to a ledge. Hale leaned forward slightly. His tone stayed gentle. "And you think you can refuse me?" Leah let a beat pass, a beat in which she felt the whole room hovering, waiting to see if she'd break. Then she spoke, clear and precise. "You said you'd move the number through a charity to make it look clean," Leah said, "and that your attorney would handle the language so no one could call it a bribe." The word bribe didn't echo. It landed, heavy. A glass clinked somewhere. A fork scraped a plate and stopped. Hale stared at her for a long moment, like he was recalculating the shape of the room. The woman in white turned her head toward him, eyes wide. One of the haircut men went rigid, his smile evaporating like breath on cold glass. Hale's voice dropped even lower. "You're making things up." Leah's gaze didn't waver. "No," she said. "You were." For the first time, Hale's smile faded. Not into anger, into focus. "Who are you?" he asked, softly enough that it sounded intimate. Behind Leah, the guard's hand moved. Not to a gun. Not yet. To his earpiece. And that was when Leah knew she'd hit the line that mattered. The line that made powerful people stop performing and start protecting themselves. She forced herself to inhale slowly. Because the truth was simple. She had not come here to pour water. She had come here because men like Mercer Hale loved private rooms. They loved the illusion that money made them invisible. They loved speaking freely near people they considered beneath them. And Leah had built her entire life around listening to the things people said when they thought no one important was listening. 2 months earlier, she hadn't been in Manhattan at all. She'd been in a borrowed studio apartment in Queens, sitting on the edge of a mattress on the floor, practicing a new signature on blank paper until her wrist ached. Leah Park. Leah Park. Leah Park. Clean, unremarkable letters. The kind of name that disappeared into a crowd. Her burner phone had buzzed at 2:11 a.m. No caller ID, just a single text. "Do you still want your life back?" She'd stared at it for a full minute before she moved. Not because she didn't understand it, but because she did. People didn't ask that unless they knew exactly what they were taking. She'd typed one word. Yes. 10 seconds later, another message arrived. "Tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Tribeca. Wear black. No jewelry. Bring nothing you'll miss." Leah had deleted the thread, then pulled the battery out of the phone anyway. Old habit. Paranoia that had once been called training by people who didn't lose sleep. The next day, she took the subway to Tribeca, with her head down and her hands empty. The street smelled like rain and expensive cologne. She walked past restaurants with men in suits and women with perfect hair, past doormen who looked through her like glass. The address led her to a building with no sign. Just a matte black door and a camera that didn't blink. A man in a grey coat opened it after exactly 3 knocks. He didn't ask her name. He didn't smile. He looked at her face like he was matching it to something he'd memorized. "Phone," he said. She handed it over. "Keys." She gave him her keys. "Any metal?" She removed the small safety pin from inside her coat pocket and placed it in his palm. He led her down a hallway that smelled like cedar and money, past a lounge where people spoke in low tones and never laughed too loud, past a second door that opened only after the man pressed his thumb to a scanner. Inside was a private conference room with a long table and 3 chairs. 2 were occupied. One by a woman in a navy suit with a posture that screamed federal without a badge. The other by a man who looked like a lawyer, until you noticed he watched the door like a soldier. The woman gestured to the empty chair. "Sit, Leah." Leah didn't correct her. She didn't confirm her name either. She sat. The woman slid a folder across the table. On the first page was a photo of Mercer Hale stepping out of a car. Perfect suit, perfect smile. A hand on the back of a politician, as if they were friends. Under the photo were dates, numbers, shell companies, charitable foundations with innocent names. The woman spoke quietly. "We believe he's laundering influence through philanthropy. We believe he's buying decisions that affect millions." Leah's throat tightened. "Why me?" The man who wasn't a lawyer leaned forward. "Because he won't talk to us," he said. "He won't meet with us. He won't even acknowledge we exist." The woman in navy didn't blink. "But he will ignore staff," she said. "And staff hears everything." Leah held the folder without flipping the page because she already knew what would be inside. Money dressed up as virtue. Crimes dressed up as strategy. "And if I say no?" Leah asked. The woman's gaze sharpened. Not cruel, just honest. "Then you keep running," she said. "And eventually, the thing you're running from catches you." Leah's fingers tightened around the folder. She didn't need them to explain what that meant. She'd been running for years. Different cities, different names, different uniforms. Anything that kept her from being remembered. Waiting tables, cleaning hotel rooms, filing papers in offices where no one learned her face. Invisible, safe, until the text message. Leah finally turned the page in the folder and saw the one detail that changed everything. A handwritten note in the margin, in a sharp, familiar script. "He's not the only one at that table." Her stomach dropped, because there were only a few people in the world who wrote like that. Only a few who still had the right to reach into her life after what they'd done. Leah looked up from the folder. "Who else?" she asked. The woman in navy hesitated for half a second, like she was measuring how much truth Leah could handle. Then she answered. And Leah's decision stopped being about money, or work, or even survival. It became personal. Back in the private dining room, Mercer Hale watched Leah like she was a puzzle he'd just realized could cut him. His date's face had gone stiff, eyes darting between Leah and the guards like she suddenly regretted every laugh she'd thrown. Hale's voice stayed calm. "You're going to repeat that," he said, "but you're going to repeat it differently." Leah kept her hands visible. Palms relaxed. Non-threatening. "What would you like me to change, Mr. Hale?" she asked. Hale's eyes narrowed. "Your confidence." The guard behind her shifted closer. Leah felt it in the air before it happened. The moment the room stopped being a dinner and started being a trap. She didn't look at the exits. She didn't look at the cameras. She looked at Hale and let her expression go blank. Calm, controlled, unreadable. Because if he thought she was scared, he'd press harder. If he thought she was strong, he'd choose a different tactic. And Leah needed him to keep talking. Just long enough. Just loud enough. Just careless enough. So she softened her voice by a fraction and said, "I understand." Hale's smile returned, thin and satisfied, like he'd heard surrender. But Leah's eyes stayed sharp, and the room, still holding its breath, had no idea which one of them was actually in control. Hale leaned back in his chair like he'd just settled a bet. "Good," he said. "Then we're clear." He lifted his glass, took a slow sip, and waved his hand in a lazy dismissal. "You can go back to hovering." The room exhaled, not in relief, but in disappointment. No explosion, no punishment. Just the quiet humiliation of being put back in place. Leah nodded once, professional, obedient. She picked up the water carafe and stepped away from the table with measured pace. No rush, no defiance. Exactly what he expected. Behind her, the conversation restarted, softer now, but not careful enough. That was always the mistake. She moved along the perimeter of the private room, refilling glasses that didn't need it, adjusting napkins that were already straight. From the outside, she looked like background noise. From the inside, her focus sharpened to a razor point. Hale's voice dropped, just enough to feel private. "I don't like being tested," he said. One of the haircut men chuckled. "You weren't." "You sure?" Hale replied. Because she understood. The woman in white leaned closer to him. "She's staff. They always listen. It doesn't mean anything." Hale didn't answer right away. Leah poured water for a man on the far end of the table. Older, quiet, expensive suit without logos. His hands were clean. His watch wasn't flashy. He didn't drink much. He was the kind of man who didn't speak unless it mattered. He finally did. "It matters," he said, "because if she understood, others could too." Hale's jaw tightened. "You're overreacting." The older man met his gaze. "You're underestimating the room." Leah clocked that instantly, noted the shift. That man wasn't afraid of Hale. That meant he either had leverage or protection. She filed it away. As she stepped back, her manager, Victor, appeared at her side like a ghost summoned by anxiety. His smile was tight, fake, all teeth and panic. "Everything okay?" he whispered, not looking at her, eyes fixed on Hale's table. "Yes," Leah said softly. "They're fine." Victor leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't correct guests. I don't care what they say." "I understand," Leah replied. That wasn't a lie. She understood perfectly. Victor straightened and vanished again, already rewriting the night in his head so it wouldn't be his fault. Leah returned to the service station near the wall of glass. Manhattan glowed beyond it, sharp and indifferent. She caught her reflection faintly in the glass. Black uniform, hair pulled back, posture neutral, invisible. Her earpiece, small, flesh-toned, pressed lightly against her skin. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. She had already given them what they needed, confirmation. The real work was happening now. At the table, Hale shifted topics with the ease of a man who believed momentum was power. "The foundation will host the dinner next quarter," he said. "Same guest list, same donors, different outcome." One of the men frowned. "The board won't approve another restructure." Hale smiled. "They will if the language is right." There it was again. Language. Leah's pulse ticked up a fraction. Not fear. Focus. The older man spoke again. "We're still exposed." Hale's smile hardened. "No, we're not. Exposure requires clarity. We deal in ambiguity." Another man laughed. "That's why we keep it verbal." Hale lifted his glass. "Exactly. No emails, no texts, just conversations like this." Leah's fingers tightened around the tray for half a second before she relaxed them again. Verbal. Unrecorded. Clean, he thought. She stepped closer, adjusting a candle, close enough that the heat brushed her knuckles. The woman in white glanced at her with renewed irritation. "Do you need something?" "No, ma'am," Leah said quietly. "Just checking the table." Hale watched her again, this time without a smile. "You're still here," he said. "Yes, sir." He tilted his head slightly. "You're very calm." "I try to be," Leah replied. For someone who just accused me of a crime, he said lightly. Leah met his gaze for exactly 1 second. I didn't accuse you of anything. His eyes flicked, sharp. You repeated my words. Yes. That's worse. The table went still again, not frozen, alert. Leah lowered her eyes. Would you like more water, Mr. Hale? He didn't answer right away. He was studying her the way men like him studied contracts, looking for loopholes. You have an accent, he said finally. Yes, sir. It's hard to place. Leah didn't look up. People say that. Where are you from? That was a test. A new one. Here, she said. A few smiles crept back, thin and dismissive. Hales didn't. Everyone is from somewhere, he said, but not everyone learns to listen the way you do. Leah felt the eyes on her again. Wait, curiosity, the beginnings of suspicion. She had to redirect. I'll bring the next course, she said, and stepped away before he could push further. In the service corridor, the noise dropped away. The hum of refrigeration units replaced the soft murmur of money and ego. Leah paused just long enough to exhale. Her mind replayed the conversation, not as words, but as structure. Who spoke when? Who interrupted whom? Who deferred? Who didn't? The older man. The one Hale listened to even when he didn't agree. She needed a name. She reached the server terminal and tapped in a request with practiced speed, not the food order. The seating chart. Her eyes scanned the private room assignment. There it was. Daniel Cross. Board member. Legal background, not flashy. Quiet power. Interesting. The earpiece buzzed once, a gentle vibration against her skin. A voice she recognized spoke softly, calm as always. We're hearing it, the woman in navy said. Keep 'em talking. Leah didn't respond. She didn't need to. She lifted the tray with the next course and headed back toward the room, because now she knew something important. Hale wasn't the smartest man at the table, and smart men always underestimated the people they thought were beneath them. As Leah stepped back into the glow of the private dining room, Hale looked up again. This time, not amused, not dismissive, assessing. And for the first time since the night began, Leah felt the balance shift, not toward safety, but toward inevitability. The third course arrived under a dome of polished silver, carried by Leah with the same controlled pace she'd used all night. Nothing about her posture suggested urgency. Nothing about her face suggested she'd just mapped half the power dynamics at the table. Hale watched her approach again. This time, he didn't bother hiding it. Before you go, he said, lifting one finger. Not a command, not a plea. A signal. Leah stopped exactly where she was supposed to stop. Close enough to hear. Far enough to be dismissed. Yes, Mr. Hale? He leaned back, eyes never leaving her. You like puzzles? A few smiles appeared around the table. The kind that meant someone was about to be entertained at someone else's expense. I don't usually have time for them, Leah said. Hale chuckled. That's a shame. This one's simple. Daniel Cross shifted in his seat, the smallest movement of disapproval. Hale ignored it. Earlier, Hale continued, you reacted very quickly to a sentence that wasn't meant for you. That tells me you either guess well, or you understand more than you let on. Leah said nothing. The woman in white crossed her arms, already irritated. This is ridiculous. Hale held up a hand, silencing her without looking. Let's test something. There it was. The word again. Test. He turned slightly toward one of the men beside him. Say it. The man frowned. Say what? The thing from Zurich, Hale said casually. The way you described it? The man hesitated, just a fraction too long. Here? Yes? Hale said. Our hostess is listening anyway. Leah felt the eyes snap back to her. The man cleared his throat. We structured it so the language stayed flexible. Hale nodded. And why did that matter? So there'd be room, the man said, choosing his words carefully now, to adjust outcomes without triggering oversight. Silence. Hale looked at Leah. Now, he said softly, tell me what you think that meant. The question landed like a knife, set gently on skin. Leah understood the trap immediately. If she played dumb, Hale would escalate. If she played smart, he'd dig deeper. Either way, he wanted to see where her limits were. So she narrowed the field. I think, she said slowly, you're asking me to summarize something I wasn't part of. Hale smiled. I'm asking you to prove you weren't. The guard near the door shifted his weight. Not threatening, ready. Leah kept her gaze neutral. If I misunderstand, she said, you'll say I'm incompetent. And if you understand, Hale prompted, you'll say I was listening when I shouldn't have been. A murmur passed through the table. Not disagreement, appreciation. Hale's smile sharpened. Good, he said. Then we're finally being honest. He leaned forward. Go on. Leah felt the earpiece vibrate once. No voice. Just a signal. Proceed. She chose her words with surgical precision. It meant, she said, that the structure was designed to sound compliant while allowing decisions to be made elsewhere. That the real agreement wasn't on paper. It was between the people speaking now. No accusation, no emotion, just description. The woman in white laughed, too loud. That's obvious. Is it? Hale asked, not looking at her. He kept his eyes on Leah. That's a very clean explanation. I work in service, Leah replied. Clarity helps. Hale studied her for a long moment. Where did you learn to speak like that? Here, she said again. Daniel Cross leaned back, fingers steepled. Enough, he said quietly. Hale glanced at him. We're just talking. Yes, Cross replied, and we should stop. Hale's jaw tightened. You're being paranoid. I'm being cautious, Cross said. There's a difference. The tension shifted, subtle, but real. Leah recognized it instantly. The moment when control wasn't unanimous anymore. Hale waved a hand. Fine, let's eat. Conversation resumed, but not as freely. The tone had changed. Where there had been bravado, there was now curation. Where there had been jokes, now there were pauses. They were choosing words. That was good for Leah. She moved around the table, refilling glasses, adjusting plates, always close enough to hear. Hale stopped engaging her directly, but his attention flicked to her more often than he realized. At one point, the man from Zurich leaned in toward Hale and spoke lower. We should table the rest. Hale's mouth curved. Relax. We're among friends. Daniel Cross didn't smile. Leah poured water near him. As she set the glass down, he spoke without looking at her. You're good at this, he said quietly. At pouring water, Leah replied. At knowing when to speak, he said. She met his gaze briefly. His eyes were sharp, assessing, but not hostile. Experience, she said. He nodded once, like that answered more than she'd said. When Leah stepped away, the earpiece vibrated again. This time, the woman in navy spoke, barely above a whisper. Cross is key, she said. He's cautious. He's listening. I know, Leah thought, but didn't say. Hale raised his glass again. To discretion, he said. The table echoed it back. Discretion. Leah filed the word away, because people who relied on discretion panicked when they lost it. As dessert plates arrived, Hale finally leaned back, satisfied. "I think we've had enough games for one night." His eyes flicked to Leah one last time. "You did well," he said. "You can clear. Permission, dismissal, ownership." "Yes, sir," Leah replied. She turned away, heart steady, mind racing, because she'd learned two crucial things. First, Hale believed he was still in control. Second, Daniel Cross was no longer sure. And once doubt entered a room like this, it didn't leave quietly. It multiplied. The moment Leah stepped out of the private room, the air changed. The service corridor felt narrower, the lighting harsher. Sounds that usually blended into background noise, the hum of refrigeration, the clink of cutlery, the hiss of steam, came into sharp focus. Adrenaline did that. It stripped things down to essentials. She paused at the service station, hands moving automatically as she stacked plates. Her face stayed neutral, but her mind replayed the last 10 minutes with ruthless precision. They had changed how they spoke. That mattered more than anything they'd said. People like Hale didn't stop talking unless they felt exposed. Not proven guilty. Exposed. The difference was subtle, but Leah had built a career on subtlety. Her earpiece buzzed again. This time, the voice was different. Male. Older. "Confirm," the voice said. "Did he reference timing?" Leah kept her eyes on the plates. "Yes," she said quietly, barely moving her lips. "Dinner next quarter. Same donors, different outcome." A pause. "Good. Keep listening." The line went dead. Leah exhaled slowly and lifted another tray. Dessert for the private room. Chocolate, sugar, distraction. Perfect. As she approached, she felt it again, the invisible line she'd crossed earlier. Heads turned sooner. Eyes tracked her longer. She was no longer furniture. Hale noticed too. "You're back already," he said. "Yes, sir," Leah replied. "Dessert." He watched her place the plates, his gaze flicking from her hands to her face. "You're efficient." "Thank you." "Efficiency usually comes from repetition," he said, "or training." Leah didn't respond. She stepped back, hands folded lightly in front of her. The woman in white took a bite and waved a dismissive hand. "It's fine." Hale didn't look at her. His attention stayed on Leah. "You ever work in law?" he asked. The question was casual. The intent was not. "No, sir." "Finance?" "No." "Government?" Leah met his gaze. Calm. "Service." Daniel Cross cut in smoothly. "Mercer," he said, "let her work." Hale glanced at him. "You're protective tonight." "I'm observant," Cross replied. The table went quiet again, not tense, but alert. Hale smiled thinly. "Relax, I'm curious, not threatened." Leah noted the phrasing. Threatened. He'd said it himself. She stepped away to give them space. The moment she turned her back, Hale leaned toward Cross. "You think she's a risk," Hale said. "I think," Cross replied carefully, "that she's a variable." Hale scoffed. "She pours water." Cross didn't argue. He didn't need to. Leah moved toward the far wall, pretending to organize cutlery while her hearing sharpened. "She repeated your language too cleanly," Cross continued. "People who guess don't do that." Hale lowered his voice. "You're imagining patterns?" Cross took a sip of wine. "That's my job." Hale didn't respond right away. Leah felt it then, a subtle shift, like a gear slipping. Hale turned slightly, angling his body away from the table, closer to Cross. More private, more serious. "We keep it vague," Hale said. "Always have." "And that works," Cross replied. "Until it doesn't." A pause. Then Hale laughed, sharp and humorless. You're worried about staff? I'm worried about exposure, Cross said. Staff is just one way it happens. Leah forced herself not to react. She adjusted a candle, buying herself another second within earshot. Hale's voice dropped again. You think she's wired? Cross didn't answer immediately. No, he said finally. I think she's competent. Hale snorted. That's worse. Leah felt a flicker of something cold move through her chest. Competence scared men like Hale more than enemies. The conversation drifted after that, deliberately safer. Donors, schedules, public appearances, clean talk. But the damage was done. Hale no longer felt untouchable. And when men like him lost that feeling, they didn't become cautious. They became dangerous. Dessert ended. Chairs shifted. Jackets were adjusted. Hale stood, the movement commanding immediate attention. Good evening, he said, voice smooth again. We'll settle. Victor appeared instantly, flustered and eager. Of course, Mr. Hale. As the guests rose, Hale turned toward Leah one last time. You handled yourself well, he said quietly. Most people would have panicked. I try not to, Leah replied. He studied her for a long moment, eyes sharp, calculating. Careful, he said. People notice things like that. Yes, sir. The group moved toward the exit, security forming around them in practiced silence. As Hale passed, he paused just long enough to lean slightly toward her. Enjoy the rest of your shift, he murmured. You never know who's listening. Then he was gone. The room felt hollow without him, like pressure released too fast. Victor rushed over, breathless. What did you say to him? He whispered. Nothing, Leah said. Victor stared at her. That man doesn't look at staff like that. Leah met his eyes. I was polite. Victor swallowed. Be careful. She nodded and turned away. In the corridor, her earpiece vibrated again. He clocked you, the woman in navy said. That was expected. What's next? Leah asked quietly. A pause. Next, the woman said, he decides whether you're a problem or an asset. Leah leaned against the wall for half a second, just long enough to feel the tension in her legs. Asset meant leverage. Problem meant removal. Either way, the night wasn't over. She straightened, smoothed her uniform, and headed back toward the floor. Because once men like Hale noticed you, there were only two options left. Disappear, or finish the job. By the time Leah finished resetting the private room, the restaurant had returned to its carefully curated rhythm. Low voices, soft laughter. The illusion that nothing significant had happened. That illusion was for the guests. Leah could feel the shift everywhere else. Victor didn't bark orders anymore. He hovered, watched. Twice he started to say something to her, then stopped, like he'd remembered she wasn't just another body on the floor tonight. Security lingered longer near her station. Not aggressive, curious. That was new. She wiped down the service counter slowly, buying time, replaying Hale's last words in her head. You never know who's listening. It hadn't been a warning. It had been a probe. Her earpiece vibrated again. A short pulse. Then the woman in navy spoke, voice tighter now. He made a call from the car, she said. Encrypted, but not clean. To who? Leah asked. Private security consultant, off the books. Leah's jaw tightened. He thinks I'm a liability. Yes. Or leverage, Leah added. Another pause. We're not sure which way he'll go yet. Leah was. Men like Hale didn't tolerate uncertainty. They controlled it, or they crushed it. She glanced toward the entrance. The private room was empty now, but the impression of power still hung in the air like smoke. That room had been designed for domination, for men who liked to speak freely and be obeyed. Hale wouldn't let tonight sit unanswered. At 10:43 p.m., her phone vibrated in her pocket. That shouldn't have happened. She didn't touch it. She didn't even slow down. She finished stacking glasses, then walked calmly toward the staff lockers at the back. Only when she was alone in the narrow hallway did she pull the phone out. Unknown number. One message. You were impressive tonight. No signature. Leah stared at the screen, pulse steady, thoughts sharp. He hadn't waited long. She typed nothing. Didn't block the number. Didn't respond. Instead, she powered the phone off completely and slid it back into her pocket. That was when Victor appeared at the end of the hall, face pale. Leah, he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Can I talk to you? She nodded. Of course. He glanced around, then gestured toward the empty office near the wine cellar. Just a minute. The door shut softly behind them. Victor leaned back against the desk, rubbing his hands together. You understand this place values discretion? Yes. And that guests like Mr. Hale don't like surprises. Yes. Victor swallowed. He asked about you. There it was. What did he ask? Leah said. Victor hesitated. Where you came from? How long you've worked here? Whether you were trained? Leah kept her face neutral. And what did you say? That you were new, quiet, reliable. He looked at her sharply. Are you? Yes, Leah said. All of those things. Victor laughed nervously. Good, because I told him you were background, nothing special. Leah met his gaze. Was that convincing? Victor didn't answer right away. He asked for your schedule, Victor said finally. Your days off. A cold clarity settled over Leah. He didn't need that for a compliment, she said. No, Victor admitted. He said he might want you for another event. Private. There it was again. Asset. Did you agree? Leah asked. Victor's shoulders slumped. I didn't have a choice. Leah nodded once. When? Soon, Victor said. He didn't specify. Of course he hadn't. Hale liked uncertainty when he was the one creating it. Leah left the office a minute later, expression unchanged. The floor felt different now, less like a workplace, more like a stage after the audience had gone, props still warm under the lights. The earpiece buzzed again. He's moving faster than expected, the woman in navy said. That message you got, our systems flagged it. You're watching my phone? Leah asked. We're watching his, the woman replied. You were collateral. Leah exhaled slowly. What's the play? Another pause. Longer this time. We escalate, the woman said. But carefully. Define carefully. We let him think he's controlling the situation. Leah's lips curved faintly. He already does. Not entirely, the woman replied. You rattled him. Now we see what he does when he thinks he's ahead. Leah understood. Let him overreach. Let him say more. Let him dig. Daniel Cross? Leah asked. He noticed too, the woman said. He hasn't made contact. That's a good sign. It means he's thinking, Leah said. Yes. The call ended. Leah finished her shift without incident. No more messages, no more tests. Just the quiet weight of inevitability pressing closer. Outside, the night air was sharp with rain and exhaust. Manhattan didn't care what deals were whispered behind glass. It kept moving. Leah pulled her coat tighter and walked toward the subway, head down, pace unremarkable. Halfway down the block, she felt it. Not footsteps, not eyes. attention. She stopped at a crosswalk, pretending to check the signal. In the reflection of a darkened storefront, she saw him, not following, waiting. A man in a grey coat, hands in pockets, posture relaxed, but alert. The kind of man who knew how to blend into crowds and still control space. Hale didn't send amateurs. The signal changed. Leah crossed with the crowd, then turned abruptly down a side street. The man didn't follow. That was worse. She reached the subway entrance and paused at the top of the stairs. Her phone vibrated again, powered off, but alive now, the battery reinserted by habit. She hadn't turned it on. Another message appeared anyway. Tomorrow, noon. Same place. Don't be late. No threat, no request, just assumption. Leah stared at the screen, then slipped the phone back into her pocket. Hale thought he'd made his decision. He thought she was useful. He thought she was contained. And that was exactly where she needed him. Because tomorrow wasn't going to be another dinner. Tomorrow was when he'd start explaining himself, whether he realized it or not. The restaurant looked different at noon. In daylight, the glass walls no longer hid the city. They reflected it. Suits moved past outside like currents in a river. Cars idled. Horns flared. Life went on, indifferent to power plays happening behind tinted doors. Leah arrived 10 minutes early. Not because she was eager. Because control started with timing. Victor wasn't at the host stand today. A man she didn't recognize stood there instead. Late 40s, expensive haircut, smile trained to look harmless. Leah Park, he said, without checking a list. Right this way. No greeting, no question. That confirmed it. They weren't pretending this was work anymore. He led her past the main dining area, through the corridor she knew too well, then past it, through a door she'd never been allowed to open, down a short set of steps, into a room that didn't exist on the public floor plan. The back room wasn't designed to impress. It was designed to control. No windows, soft grey walls, a single long table, 4 chairs, a wall-mounted screen that was currently black, cameras recessed into corners so subtly they looked like smoke detectors. Hale was already there. No suit jacket, sleeves rolled, coffee instead of wine. Daniel Cross sat to his right. That made this dangerous. Sit, Hale said pleasantly, gesturing to the chair across from him. Leah did. The man who'd escorted her closed the door and took up position by it, not blocking it, just present. Hale studied her for a moment. You look less nervous today. I slept, Leah replied. He smiled. Good. Then this will be easier. Cross leaned back, arms crossed, eyes on Leah. Not hostile, curious. This isn't disciplinary, Hale said. It's an opportunity. Leah said nothing. Hale tapped the table once. You heard things last night? Yes. You understood them? Yes. And you didn't react the way most people would? No. Hale nodded, satisfied. That tells me you're capable. Cross finally spoke. It also tells us you're dangerous. Hale shot him a look. Everything useful is dangerous. Leah met Cross's gaze. I didn't ask to be here. No, Cross said. You didn't. Hale leaned forward. But now that you are, we'd like to know what you plan to do with what you heard. Leah folded her hands on the table. I don't plan to do anything. Hale smiled wider. That's not an answer. It is, she said, just not one you like. The room went quiet. Hale's smile thinned, but he didn't push yet. Instead, he gestured toward the black screen on the wall. A moment later, it lit up. Documents appeared. Charts, names, foundations, flow diagrams. Leah recognized them instantly. They were clean versions of the same structures she'd already seen. Sanitized, polished, legal on the surface. Hale watched her face carefully. "You know what you're looking at?" "Yes." "These are summaries," he said. "Nothing illegal, just information." Cross interjected, "Information is leverage." Hale ignored him. "We're putting together a team," he continued. "People who can listen, translate intent, reduce risk." Leah understood then. They didn't want to silence her. They wanted to hire her. "You want me to sit in rooms like this," Leah said, "and make sure your language stays vague enough." Hale smiled. "I want you to make sure no one misunderstands us." "That's the opposite of vagueness," Leah replied. "Not if you're good," Hale said. Cross watched her closely now. "And if I say no?" Leah asked. Hale's smile didn't move. "Then we worry." "About what?" "That you might misunderstand something later," Hale said. "On purpose." There it was. The threat delivered gently. Leah leaned back slightly. "You're asking me to help you manage risk?" "Yes." "By becoming one," she said. Cross's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Hale's eyes sharpened. "Everyone in this room is a risk." "True," Leah said, "but only one of us can walk out and disappear." The man by the door shifted. Hale studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed softly. "You think you're in control," he said. "No," Leah replied. "I think you want to be." Silence stretched. Cross broke it. "Mercer," he said calmly, "we should stop." Hale didn't look at him. "We're having a conversation." "We're pressuring a variable," Cross said. "That's not a conversation. That's a mistake." Hale finally turned. "You're siding with her?" "I'm protecting us," Cross said. Leah watched the exchange carefully. This was it. The midpoint. The crack. Hale exhaled, leaned back, and lifted his coffee. "Fine," he said. "Let's simplify." He looked at Leah. "What do you want?" The question hung there, heavier than any threat. Leah answered honestly. "Time," she said. Hale frowned. "For what?" "To decide," Leah replied, "and to forget less." Cross's eyes flicked to her, sharp. Hale considered it. "You already have time." "Not enough," she said. "If you rush me, I become unpredictable." Hale studied her like a chessboard. Finally, he nodded once. 72 hours, he said. "After that, you either work with us or you don't." "And if I don't?" Leah asked. Hale's smile returned, smooth and dangerous. "Then we hope you're as discreet as you seem." The meeting ended there. No handshake, no paperwork, just assumptions. As Leah was escorted back upstairs, her earpiece vibrated hard, urgent. "Say nothing," the woman in navy said immediately. "You did exactly what we needed." "They want me inside," Leah said quietly. "Yes," the woman replied. "And now they think it was their idea." Leah stepped out into the daylight again, the restaurant already resetting for lunch service like nothing had happened. "But it gets better," the woman continued. "While you were in that room, Daniel Cross made a call." "To who?" Leah asked. The answer came after a beat. "To his lawyer." Leah's pulse finally jumped. "And?" she asked. "And he asked a very specific question," the woman said. "About whistleblower protections." Leah closed her eyes for half a second. The power shift had begun, and Hale didn't even feel it yet. 72 hours felt generous only to people who didn't understand pressure. By the second morning, Leah knew Hale wouldn't wait that long. She felt it in the way the city watched her now. Not openly, not clumsily. Just enough to let her know the perimeter had tightened. The coffee shop near her apartment had a new barista who didn't blink when she paid in cash. The man reading a newspaper across the platform at the subway station turned the page too slowly. The elevator in her building paused an extra second on her floor. None of it was illegal. None of it was accidental. Hale was reminding her she was visible. At noon on the second day, her phone rang. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was the restaurant. She let it ring once, twice, then answered. Yes? Private room, Victor said, voice strained. They're here. Leah closed her eyes briefly. Now? Yes, and it's not just Hale. That mattered. I'll be there, Leah said. She arrived in uniform, hair pulled back, expression neutral. The host stand was empty again. The man with the harmless smile was waiting. This way, he said, already turning. Same door, same stairs, same back room. Different atmosphere. Hale stood near the wall-mounted screen this time, jacket back on, posture relaxed but alert. Daniel Cross was seated, legs crossed, phone face down on the table. A third man stood near the corner, late 50s, expensive but understated, eyes that missed nothing. That would be legal. Leah, Hale said pleasantly. Good timing. She didn't sit this time. She waited. The third man studied her openly. This is her? Yes, Hale said. She's the one. The man nodded slowly. She doesn't look like a problem. Hale smiled. That's what I said. Leah met the man's gaze. And you are? He smiled faintly. Someone who helps make problems smaller. Legal then, or adjacent. Sit, Hale said again. Leah did. Hale clasped his hands. We thought it would be helpful to clarify expectations. I asked for time, Leah said. And you got it, Hale replied. This is still within that window. Cross didn't look convinced. The legal man spoke. We're not here to threaten you. Good, Leah said, because that would be a mistake. Hale's eyes flicked to her, amused. We're here to make sure everyone understands the same thing, the man continued. You heard sensitive discussions. You demonstrated an ability to interpret intent. And now you want to control that ability, Leah said. Leverage it, Hale corrected. Contain it, Cross said quietly. Hale shot him a look. Enough. Leah felt the tension pulling tighter. This wasn't recruitment anymore. This was risk assessment. The legal man leaned forward. You have options, he said. One, you consult. Discreetly, well compensated, protected. And the other? Leah asked. A pause. Not long. Deliberate. The other, he said, is that you continue your life knowing you're carrying information that makes people nervous. Leah nodded. And nervous people make bad decisions. Hale smiled thinly. They do. The screen behind him lit up again. This time, it wasn't charts. It was video. Security footage. The private dining room. 3 nights ago. The angle was high, clean. Audio muted, but the body language was unmistakable. Hale gestured toward it. We reviewed everything. Leah's pulse stayed steady. I assumed you would. You never touched a device, the legal man said. You never took notes. You never asked questions. No, Leah agreed. And yet, Hale added, you remember everything. Yes. Hale stepped closer. So tell me, he said quietly, what exactly do you remember? This was the trap. Leah leaned back slightly, letting silence do the work. I remember, she said finally, that you chose that room because you thought it was private. Hale's smile flickered. I remember that you changed your phrasing halfway through the meal. Cross's jaw tightened. I remember that one person at the table tried to stop the conversation. Cross didn't move. And I remember, Leah continued, that you noticed. Hale's voice stayed calm. That's not an answer. It is, Leah said. Just not a confession. The legal man exhaled slowly. She's careful. She's testing us, Hale replied. No, Cross said. She's demonstrating restraint. That was new. Hale turned to him sharply. Whose side are you on? Cross met his gaze. The side that survives. The room went very still. Hale laughed once, short and humorless. You think I'm not thinking about survival? I think you're thinking about dominance, Cross said. And you're confusing it with safety. Leah watched Hale closely now. This was no longer about her. This was about control slipping. Hale turned back to Leah. Last chance, he said. You work with us, or you walk out, and hope we never misunderstand you. Leah considered him for a moment. Then she said, If I walk out, you won't misunderstand me. Hale frowned. Explain. You'll know exactly what I am, Leah said. A risk you didn't neutralize. The legal man shifted uncomfortably. Cross looked at her, eyes sharp. And if you stay? Then I become a risk you pretend to control, Leah replied. Which is worse? Silence. Hale stared at her, jaw tight, calculating. Then, slowly, he smiled again. You're confident, he said. No, Leah corrected. I'm prepared. Hale stepped back, spreading his hands. Then we're done here. He turned toward the door. For now. The man by the door opened it. The meeting was over without resolution. As Leah stood to leave, Cross spoke quietly, without looking at Hale. If you need counsel, he said, mine is very good. Leah met his eyes, just for a second. Thank you, she said. Outside, the city swallowed her again. Her earpiece buzzed the moment she cleared the building. That was dangerous, the woman in navy said. Yes, Leah replied. And effective, the woman added. Cross just crossed a line. Which one? Leah asked. He didn't just doubt Hale, the woman said. He chose you. Leah closed her eyes briefly. The big twist was forming. And Hale still thought he was setting the rules. The fallout didn't arrive loudly. It arrived in absences. By the next morning, Hale hadn't called. No messages, no summons, no pressure. The kind of silence that meant someone was thinking very carefully. That worried Leah more than threats ever had. She sat at her kitchen table, coffee untouched, notebook closed. She didn't write anything down. She didn't need to. The details were already locked in place, layered and indexed in her head the way she'd learned to do years ago, when memory had been safer than evidence. Her phone buzzed at 8:17 a.m. Not Hale. Daniel Cross. She stared at the name for a full second before answering. Yes? You should come in, Cross said. No greeting, no preamble. Not to the restaurant. Where? Leah asked. Somewhere neutral, he replied. And before Mercer decides to simplify things. That was as close to fear as she'd heard in his voice. I'm listening, Leah said. Good, Cross replied, because after today, you won't need to. They met in a private conference room overlooking the river. Not flashy, no branding, the kind of place rented by firms that didn't want their names remembered. Cross arrived alone. That mattered more than anything else. You're moving fast, Leah said as she sat. So are you, Cross replied, and you're winning. I'm not playing, Leah said. Cross smiled faintly. That's why you are. He slid a folder across the table. Thicker than the one she'd seen before. Heavier. Mercer thinks he's recruiting you, Cross said. What he doesn't realize is that he already gave you what you needed. Leah didn't open the folder yet. You mean leverage. I mean confirmation, Cross corrected. Language patterns, behavioral tells, consistency. She looked up at him. You've been documenting him. For years, Cross said quietly. And so has everyone else at that table. Just not in the same direction. Leah finally opened the folder. Inside were transcripts, not recordings, reconstructions, clean, structured summaries of private conversations, meetings, dinners, calls, all phrased the same way, ambiguous on the surface, damning in aggregate. You're not afraid of Hale, Leah said. Cross shook his head. I'm afraid of being tied to him when he collapses. There it was. The truth men like him never said out loud until it was already decided. You want out, Leah said. I want distance, Cross replied, and insulation. And you think I'm that, Leah said. I know you are, Cross replied, because you don't sound like someone who wants revenge. You sound like someone who wants closure. Leah's fingers tightened on the folder. You know what I do, she said. Yes, Cross replied, and Mercer doesn't. That was the twist Hale had missed. Leah wasn't just listening. She was classifying. Hale believed words were weapons. Leah knew they were fingerprints. You let him test me, Leah said. Cross nodded. Because I needed to see if you'd flinch. And? Leah asked. You didn't, Cross said. You catalogued. Silence settled between them, thick but steady. What happens now? Leah asked. Cross leaned back. Now you do nothing. Leah frowned. That's it? For you, Cross said. Yes. And Hale? Cross's expression hardened. He's already done what he needed to do. Which is? Leah asked. He called in favors, Cross said. He pushed. He rushed. He overcorrected. Leah closed the folder slowly. And that's when men like him make mistakes, she said. Cross nodded. Exactly. Her phone buzzed on the table between them. This time it was Hale. Leah didn't answer. She let it ring. Cross watched her closely. If you pick up, he'll think you're still inside his frame. And if I don't? Leah asked. He'll escalate, Cross replied, which is exactly what we need. The phone stopped ringing. A second later, a message appeared. We need to talk. Today. Leah turned the screen face down. You're sure? She asked. Cross met her gaze. He thinks pressure creates clarity. Let him prove it. 2 hours later, the pressure came. Not from Hale. From the restaurant, Victor called, voice shaking. They're here, he whispered. Not dining, waiting. Who? Leah asked. Security, Victor said. Private. They asked for you. Leah closed her eyes briefly. He's done waiting, she said. Yes, Cross agreed. And now he's exposed. They arrived at the restaurant separately. Leah entered through the front, uniform on, expression neutral. The dining room was empty except for 4 men near the bar. Not staff, not guests. They didn't block her path. They watched. Victor stood near the host stand, pale and silent. She's here, one of the men said into his earpiece. Leah kept walking. The back room door was open. Hale stood inside, alone this time. You're late, he said. I wasn't scheduled, Leah replied. He smiled tightly. You're difficult. No, Leah said. I'm precise. He stepped closer. You didn't answer my call. I didn't need to, Leah said. You already said everything you wanted to. Hale's smile vanished. You think you're safe, he said. I think you're done, Leah replied. Hale laughed sharply. You have nothing. Leah tilted her head slightly. You're wrong. She reached into her pocket, not for a device, not for proof, for nothing. That was the point. You gave me patterns, she said. You corrected language. You reinforced phrasing. You confirmed intent. Hale's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. No, Leah said calmly. I'm finished. He stared at her, searching for fear. He didn't find it. What do you want? Hale demanded. Leah met his gaze, steady and cold. I already have it, she said. She turned and walked out. Behind her, Hale stood alone in the room he'd chosen to feel powerful. And for the first time, he understood something far too late. The woman he'd tried to control hadn't taken anything from him. She'd simply watched him give everything away. Hale didn't come after her. That was the mistake. For the next 12 hours, nothing happened. No messages, no pressure, no shadows on the sidewalk, no men waiting at corners. Silence. Leah recognized it instantly. Not restraint, not strategy. Damage control. She spent the night awake anyway, sitting in the dark of her apartment, fully dressed, phone face down on the table. Not waiting for a threat, waiting for consequences. They came just after dawn. The woman in navy called first. No greeting. He's bleeding, she said. Leah closed her eyes. How badly? Fast, the woman replied. And not the way he planned. Leah pictured it clearly. Hale scrambling to contain something he didn't fully understand. Making calls, demanding reassurances, pressing people who had already decided to step away. Men like Hale didn't fall because of enemies. They fell because allies stopped answering. What triggered it? Leah asked. A misstep, the woman said. He tried to lock down a donor, used the wrong words. Leah exhaled slowly. He clarified intent. Yes, the woman replied. In writing. That almost made Leah smile. Almost. By noon, the news feeds started whispering. Nothing concrete, just phrases. Internal review, voluntary restructuring, temporary stepping aside. The language of collapse disguised as professionalism. Leah watched it unfold from a distance. She didn't comment. She didn't react. She didn't need to. Her phone buzzed once more. Daniel Cross. She answered. It's moving, he said. No satisfaction, just fact. I know, Leah replied. He's trying to pin it on someone, Cross continued. Not you. That would be inefficient, Leah said. Cross huffed a quiet laugh. You really don't care. I care, Leah corrected, just not about him. A pause. They're going to ask questions, Cross said. Formal ones. Leah nodded, even though he couldn't see it. I expected that. They'll want you, he added. Not as a witness, as context. That's acceptable, Leah said. Another pause. He chose his words carefully. You understand this ends things, Cross said. For him. For the table. Yes. And for you? He asked. Leah looked out the window. The city moved on schedule. People hurried to jobs that didn't know her name. That anonymity felt earned now, not borrowed. For me, she said, it finishes them. Cross didn't argue. By evening, Hale's name was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Press releases without faces. Statements without signatures. A man erased by language. Leah returned to the restaurant one last time, not to work. Victor met her at the door, eyes wide, voice hushed. They said you don't have to come back. That's fine, Leah said. He hesitated. They asked, what you want to do next? Leah glanced around the dining room. The tables were set, the candles lit. Everything ready for people who believed rooms like this belonged to them. I'm done serving, she said. Victor nodded, relieved and afraid at the same time. As she turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the glass again. Same woman, different weight. Outside, her phone buzzed one last time. Not Hale, not Cross. A new number. It's over. You're clear. No signature. She didn't need one. Leah slipped the phone into her pocket and walked into the crowd, unnoticed, unremarkable. Exactly how she chose it. The official ending came quietly. No arrests on camera, no courtroom sketches, no dramatic walk of shame. Just an update filed late on a Friday afternoon. Mercer Hale stepped down, effective immediately. The Foundation announced a comprehensive internal review. Several board members resigned to focus on personal matters. Language did what it always did. It softened the fall. It hid the blood. Leah read the statements once, then closed the browser. That part was over. She sat in a small office 3 floors above a street-level pharmacy, hands folded on the table, posture relaxed. The room smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. Neutral. Temporary. Across from her sat 2 people who didn't introduce themselves by title. They didn't need to. "We're not here to interrogate you," the woman said calmly. "We're here to understand context." Leah nodded. "I can provide that." They didn't ask about recordings or devices or proof. They asked about tone, timing, word choice, shifts in phrasing. When did it change? Who noticed first? What made him rush? Leah answered evenly, precisely. No speculation, no emotion. At one point, the man across from her paused. "You're very controlled." Leah met his gaze. "So was he," she said, "until he wasn't." That seemed to satisfy them. The meeting ended without ceremony. No handshake, no warning, just closure. "You're free to go," the woman said. "If anyone contacts you again, let us know." "They won't," Leah replied. Outside, the afternoon light was already fading. The city was loud, busy, unconcerned. It always was. She walked for a while without direction, letting the tension bleed out of her shoulders. Past cafes, offices, glass towers where people were already rewriting their own stories. At a crosswalk, her phone buzzed. Daniel Cross. She answered. "It's done," he said. "I know," Leah replied. A pause. "You didn't take anything from him?" "No," Leah said. "He gave it away." Another pause. Longer this time. "You could do very well," Cross said carefully. "With the right people." Leah smiled faintly, though he couldn't see it. "I already did." She ended the call and powered the phone off. That night, she packed light. No uniforms, no borrowed names. Just what she needed. Before leaving the apartment, she stood for a moment in the doorway, listening to the city hum through the walls. Years ago, she'd learned how to disappear because she had to. This time, she chose to. Men like Mercer Hale believed power lived in rooms they controlled. They believed intelligence was loud. That fear was obvious. That silence meant ignorance. They were wrong. Power lived in patterns. Intelligence listened. Fear hid behind confidence. And silence, real silence, was a decision. Leah stepped out, locked the door, and merged into the crowd. No one watched her go. And that was the point. If you enjoyed this story, stay with the channel for more quiet power shifts like this one.